Our next conversation is on the future of digital infrastructure. The pandemic has led to an increased adoption of digital services for both personal and professional purposes. The emergence of global technologies like 5G and the Internet of Things provides avenues for closing these gaps. How can international cooperation enable development of a reliable, scalable, and inclusive digital infrastructure? To discuss these issues, we have Nivriti Rai, Country Head, Intel India, and Vice President Data Center Group of the Intel Corporation, Nobuhiro Endo, Chairman of the Board, NEC Corporation, Minister Paul Fletcher, Minister for Communications, Cyber Safety and the Arts, Government of Australia. And this discussion will be moderated by Laura Lucas Magnuson, Vice President for Communications and Strategy, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and former Communications Director of the Obama Foundation. Welcome all.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be with all of you and our speakers for this conversation on the future of digital transformation. Clearly, 2020 has been all about digital transformation in our lives, with the pandemic accelerating the adoption of digital services for both our personal life and our professional. I'm sitting at home here in my office in Washington, D.C., connected with all of you and our speakers in a way that last year would have been extraordinary and now is a part of our everyday life. I think we've also experienced the limitations or edges of digital transformation, as well as glimpses of cutting-edge technology and what is to come, especially in critical areas such as telecommunications, health, and finance. We need robust digital infrastructure to support all this connection and interaction. And while many OECD countries have a well-developed digital infrastructure to cope with increased adoption of digital services, emerging economies in some regions still lack a reliable backbone for digital infrastructure. And these gaps can accelerate and accentuate digital inequalities within and among regions and countries. Yet the emergence of global technologies such as 5G and the Internet of Things provides an avenue for closing these gaps, and especially given the technology leapfrogging that we see. Today, we'll talk about how international cooperation might enable the development of a reliable, scalable digital infrastructure that is future ready, and what role the private sector can play in building a safe and inclusive digital infrastructure. I am grateful for all of our speakers joining us today to share their insights. We will first start with brief opening comments by each panelist and then get into conversation and questions. We will begin with Dr. Endo. Dr. Endo, I welcome your comments.
Thank you, Magnuson. Uh, Through the responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, ICT capability, which didn't exist in the time of the Spanish flu, has been recognized as an important component for support of the human society. And it continues to act as a central axis in COVID-19 response and recovery. And today, under the theme of the future of the digital infrastructure, please allow me to begin by sharing my definition of the digital infrastructure, or rather ICT, and also share the value of the digital infrastructure itself. I believe ICT has three key functions, namely real-time and dynamic and remote. And here dynamic means that each data itself doesn't have any meanings. However, if we collect a lot of data and apply some software like AI on those big data, great value will be created dynamically. So I call this function as dynamic. And infrastructure to realize these functions is composed with three layers, platforms, physical system layers at the bottom, and the data platform layer in the middle, and on an application or software layer on the top. The physical platform layer consists of the hardware components such as network equipment and computers, and the capability of those components are dramatically improved in those 25 years, especially the computing power improved by 2.45 millions. And as a result, the 1 year's processing time will be reduced to just 13 seconds. The dramatical improvement we have. So this physical layer platform will bring the key value of the ICT. And as you know, those are the real time and the remote. And those functions really maximize the ICT solution value in the human being society. And also, as you know, the value of the real time and the remote are already confirmed in this COVID-19 remote by using remote functions. Next area of the infrastructure of ICT is the platform data, where the format conversion takes place. And this helps the application to handle the data for deriving the variable optimized solutions. Currently in Japan, we have a vision called Society 5.0, specified as the next stage of the information society, Society 4.0. From this definition of the Society 4.0, maybe we can say the Society 5.0 is a data society. So it means that the source of the value moves from the information to data. As I explained, that the dynamic improvement of computing power and network capacity really introduced the Society 5.0 from Society 4.0. This data society is possible to create quite high value, especially overall optimized solution. I don't know how to in English, the total optimization actually, inductively and in the real time as well, by using a large amount of data gathered from a wide range of the sources of human society. And overall optimized solution will be quite effective to build a smart society, actually. So like the smart energy network and smart logistics networks, etc. And in the Society 5.0, it will lead to realize a super smart society. A huge amount of data will be collected from the physical space, and those will be accumulated in the cyberspace, and will be converted into a new type of the intelligence, and the value will reach every corner of the society. From this value creation point of view, how to secure the international cyberspace is very crucial, and it is more than ever before in data society. And collaborative work crossing borders becomes more important. And in the context of international cooperation, together with the countries that share the vision of the free and open Indo-Pacific, Japan is spearheading concrete cooperation towards achieving a free and open maritime order based on the rule of the law in the Indo-Pacific region. A free and open Indo-Pacific has been widely embraced and across the international community, especially in the terms of digital connectivity cooperation with respect to collective countermeasures and collective action for cybersecurity. In this vision, movements that contribute to value creation in cyberspace under the data free flow with trust advocated at the 2019 Osaka G20 will be expected to be accelerated. It is very important to share the importance of the safety and the security in cyberspace internationally with trust to build the common cyberspace for the value creation. I believe international cooperative action is key to realize super smart society for the world. It would also greatly contribute to meeting SDGs as well. The utilization of the ICT with digital infrastructure through international cooperation is indispensable for value creation. It becomes also important to create value by forming a chain of countries, companies, and the people who share the same vision. I'd like to conclude my presentation by saying that with their response to the COVID-19, the use of the ICT will accelerate even more as an essential step to keep economic activity alive. This will contribute to the achievement of the SDGs as well, which is a common goal of all humankind. I really believe that meetings like this, which build a trust through discussion, are very important and very appreciated to join today's discussion and greatly looking forward to exchanging the opinions for trust building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Endo. And I welcome Minister Fletcher for you to share your opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Laura, and it's great to be with you and other participants in this Virtual Global Technology Summit organised by the Carnegie Foundation. I want to start by reflecting on the lessons of the COVID pandemic, where I think we've seen a huge spike in people working and studying from home. Certainly in Australia, over our national broadband network, which now serves the great majority of the population, we saw traffic levels up about 70% during the day. In many ways, I think we've seen things that were promised for 20 years come to fruition. There's been a lot of promises, projections about people working from home, working remotely. But that has required several things to come together. The availability of infrastructure so people have high-speed connectivity, the availability of software. And I think all of us have seen this year that actually video conferencing software is so much better than the last time we might have checked. And of course, human behaviour. And we've all adapted many of us have adapted our behaviour very quickly in these challenging circumstances. So this has been a moment where predictions that have been made for 20 years have been in many ways realised. The second thing I'd like to observe is that if we go back to the 1990s, there was a lot of gloom about the digital divide. It was a time when the only way to get connected was with a personal computer. We didn't have smartphones or tablets. But in fact, reflecting 25 years later, the degree to which the internet and the technologies over which it's delivered has been incredibly inclusive, with several billion people now connected. And that reflects a combination of explosions in the number of people, particularly with mobile handsets, which is, the dominant way that many people connect. The very sharp drop in price, combined with the extraordinary developments in what you get. for what you pay for. And of course, the way the internet has gone from being a resource used by a small number of people in academic communities to a mass market global consumer phenomenon, the likes of which we've never seen before. And just look at India with, as I'm advised, a domestic market with 1.2 billion telecommunications subscribers. A very powerful symbol of inclusiveness and wide availability. And so while it's natural that we focus on the gaps and who remains not connected, when you look at what's been achieved over 25 years, it is remarkable. If I turn then thirdly briefly to where are the areas and the groups who remain outside of the connected community, different countries face different challenges. In Australia, we're fortunate to be a wealthy country, but we're also a small population country, 25 million people across 7.7 million square kilometres. For us, that means the challenge is that still 70% of our landmass does not have terrestrial mobile coverage. Now, we are therefore very interested in low Earth orbiting satellites, in Project Loon, the Google or Alphabet project to use hot air balloons or balloons providing base stations in the sky, and many other technologies. So that's one interest we share with many countries in Africa, for example, or South America, where some of those technologies are now being trialled or implemented. The last observation I'd make in my opening comments is that all of this enormous explosion of availability and connectivity, as we know, depends upon many, many layers. There's a hardware layer and a network layer, which has traditionally been delivered by the telecommunications companies, many privately owned, some around the world still government owned. And full disclosure, I'm a former telco executive myself. There is an issue, I believe, that the economic returns to building out telecommunications networks are under great pressure, while very generous returns are being earned by the global digital platforms. And that's not really a sustainable arrangement, because if you can't get a reasonable return building out networks, then we won't succeed in getting more people having access to the internet and all of the wonderful benefits it brings in terms of communications, economic participation, entertainment, and its many other benefits. I'll conclude there.
Thank you so much, Minister. Ms. Rai, I invite you to share your opening comments.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was lovely to hear from Dr. Anderson and Honorable Minister Fletcher. I will start my opening comments with 3 questions that I must answer. Why is there a need of this discussion around the digital infrastructure? What does it mean in terms of focus areas and technologies? And who will enable this? To start with, why? You know, in the 20th century, the world talked about the physical infrastructure. And physical infrastructure meant roads, rails, waterways. What were they doing? They were enabling people to have access of technology or access to trade, access to market and whatnot. That created productivity and that translated into well-being of human beings. In this century that we are in, all of that physical infrastructure translated to digital infrastructure. And again, it will do the same. It will improve productivity, reduce the friction points in the processes for trade, for partnership, collaboration, and as a result, unleash human creativity to create value. Like, the Honorable Minister Fletcher said, very beautifully, each country has its own advantages, disadvantages. Each country has its own competencies and gaps, and therefore each country has its own need. I do not believe that the template that Australia built or a United States built could be copy exacted in India, because it will not meet the needs that the country has. So we have to look at building the digital infrastructure which meets the need of the region that we are in. For example, in India, there was a lot of effort to drive these national level platforms. One of them is the unified payment interface. What happened due to that in India? From a cash driven economy, we actually moved to digital wallet driven economy and skipped the credit card. So just to give you an example, today, the UPI transaction just in 1 month, October 2020, was 2.02 billion transactions as compared to 77.3 million credit card transactions. The point here is, the need of the country defines the requirement of the technology and therefore the infrastructure that goes with it. Similarly, if you looked at, again, Honorable Minister Fletcher talked about, 1.2 billion mobile connections the country has. Clearly, our economy is a lot driven by, this mobile connectivity. So the medium that we used is, instead of using the wired communication, we moved to wireless through the mobile phones. So while we have 1.2 billion mobile connections, we actually have 700 million, roughly half of the smartphone connections. Now, these smartphone connections enable data usage. And, most of you would know that India is number one in the data usage. Each day, there is 200 megabyte of data a person could use. But since I told you only half of the population has smartphone, or 700 million, that translates into 400 megabyte of usage per day. And if you look at per month, it translates into 12 gigabyte. And this is the largest in the world. Now, if we need to support this 12 gigabyte per month, we have to look at the availability of data at lower cost. And I'm happy to share that, to enable the need that the India has, the infrastructure that we build around this mobile technology, we enabled the data cost of 25 cents per gigabyte as compared to, just to give you a reference, $12 per GB in United States and $10 in China, 25 cents in India, 20 to 25 cents. I'm building the story to tell you that the need of a country defines the innovation and the infrastructure that's required. A similar example is, goods and services tax network. We have, several million businesses enrolled into this single database, single platform. The advantage is, a lot of tax related monetary transaction are digitized and made easy, such that, the several million micro and small and medium enterprises that India has could be enabled. Now, these infrastructure have to be built collaboratively by government as well as private sector, both, homegrown as well as MNCs. Now, what are those critical, infrastructure that I believe India needs, and, many of the nations of the world will need? Number one, connectivity, 5G. So when I look at 5G, I think of the urban 8,000 cities, but we've got to address the 600,000 plus villages that we have. How do we enable connectivity in these, rural areas? So we have to look at rural connectivity, and that's the innovation we require. We have, private network needs. So while 5G may not be implemented full scale in India in the next couple of years, but I certainly believe that the private network that could enable manufacturing, for example, could be enabled in India. And that's the need of the infrastructure that we will have with, the connectivity technologies. Second, infrastructure. Here, I would say Dr. Endo-san clearly called out an AI platform. So we talked about unified payment interface that we have at the national level. I believe that AI will be a critical requirement If 20% of the world population is in India, each person is a data factory. The amount of data we are generating is humongous. In India, like I told you, 270 petabytes of data was consumed before the pandemic per day. 270 petabytes. Just to give you, a feel for what happened in March when the first lockdown happened, we upped the data consumption to by 14%, 308 petabytes of data. That data is continuously growing because everything is getting tele education, retail, telehealth. Everything slowly is going to be tele, and the pandemic has only expedited that. If you have that kind of data, 300 petabyte consumption daily in March, I assure you it has only grown today. Now, what that does is this will generate the need of AI-based value creation. Today, we have only, scratched the surface with recommendation engine, with search engines or bots that are helping you with services. It's only the surface that AI has been scratched. So I really feel that the nation and the several nations together need to build an AI platform such that we can have standardization across policies, data collection, contextualization, and then value add. The world will see $15 trillion with AI, and we've got to focus on AI infrastructure. If India is generating 308 petabytes in March daily, and I'm telling you it has only increased, it definitely needs an infrastructure which will be provided by the supercomputing and cloud infrastructure. Now, today, the country, India, has about 150 data centers. And, each data center has about 50 to 100 servers. Today, the consumption is 370 megawatt. The early prediction prior to pandemic was the need is going to be 1,000 megawatt in the next few years, which means 0.1% energy requirement. With the pandemic and the understanding we have, this growth will not be 3x, it will be more like 10x. If it is more like 10x, then it will be 1% of energy consumption of the entire energy capacity installed in the country. So the third thing that I would talk about post connectivity, post AI, is the cloud infrastructure, which will dictate that the amount of energy consumption is going to be huge. So we've got to look at how to make energy efficient, how to drive, more, air and solar driven energy generation. Only that will then meet the needs we have. So AI, 5G, supercomputing, cloud, as well as energy, all of this will have data floating in the air. If data is floating in the air, Dr. Endo-san said, it's absolutely essential to talk about security. So security-based infrastructure is the other requirement. So these are the 5 focus areas that I believe are the what's. What are those infrastructure that we have to drive, and who are the we? The we is my final question answered is the people who will be building these infrastructure, contributing to create value, in the end translating into leading technology development, business and economic growth, and lastly, societal and population scale value will be government, will be the private industries, whether it is MNC or local. Lastly, it will be the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, because I can tell you, I'm so proud that the country India is, third largest in the startup. And the better statistic to share with you is 10 years ago, we took 10 years to make unicorns. Today, we are making in 14 to 18 months. In e-retail, in transportation, in, driving fintech-based solution, in education and health. Education and health kind of, accelerated. Baiju is a very fast unicorn. Similarly, M5, this pandemic drove the meteoric rise of, companies like M5. So again, who are the partners? Collaborators will be government and across country, because I really believe AI policy needs to be cross country. It will be startups, entrepreneurs, it will be companies like MNCs and local. And lastly, I should not miss academia. So everybody has a bit to contribute, and therefore I believe that each one of us here have a role to play in driving the growth of the world, the value creation, and the quality of life for every single person on this earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hearing you talk about value creation, that was actually a theme across each of your presentations. Minister, I wanted to pick up with you first in terms of thinking about that value creation idea. I know that Australia is launching a digital business plan that is aimed in part at helping small and medium-sized enterprises. What elements do you see as necessary for a strong digital economy to help those entities with this idea of value creation?
Well, for us, first of all, it's about the physical infrastructure. I mentioned that we're building, and in fact largely built out, what we're calling the National Broadband Network, which will now is accessible to 11.8 million premises, so that's almost all premises in Australia, and there's a significant focus there on business premises. We're also well advanced with 5G. Our largest operator, Telstra, aims to have 75% of all Australians able to access 5G by the end of next year, and we've got a couple of 5G spectrum auctions coming up next year. So first of all, the physical infrastructure, the broadband connectivity. Secondly, then, the way that businesses use that. And for example, what we see as a very clear trend is small and medium businesses using the cloud. Cloud applications have been a big part of what large corporations have been doing for quite a few years now. But for small and medium businesses, first of all, you need a high-speed connection, because unless you can connect at high speed, you're not going to be very confident about storing all your business records, not in a server on your premises, but in the cloud. But as we've greatly increased the speeds available to most businesses, the take-up of cloud is really increasing, and that brings big productivity benefits. The other thing I'll mention is that in our most recent budget, we committed substantial funding, over 200 million Australian dollars, to a digital identity offering. It's a federated scheme, and it doesn't, of course, it's on a orders of magnitude smaller than the scale of what India's achieved, but nevertheless, it's something we're putting a lot of focus into because of the reduction in transactions costs. If you can securely, quickly establish your identity digitally, that's saving in time, in the hassle of producing paper documents, for consumers, for businesses interacting with each other, that'll be very, very significant. And that is something where government clearly can play a very important role in establishing a digital identity system, establishing the protocols and frameworks for that, and then the economy-wide benefits are very substantial.
And Dr. Endo, continuing on the theme again of value creation, you talked about the value to society, and you also mentioned the digital technologies contribute to sustainable development goals. All of that said, what do you see as the role of the corporation and society in supporting those efforts?
And before that, I just would like to comment about the value creation first.
Please.
And
please.
We have a quite interesting discussion now. And from the viewpoint of the value creation in the digital area, so as I mentioned, the currently we move from the society 4.0 to the 5.0. It means, as I said, the source of the value moves from the information to data. So therefore, in order to create the value, how to collect the trust data, and also how to not only the usage of the data, but also how to create the data, the trust data. That seems to be quite an important part. So, and also how to accelerate the movement of the data crossing the border. Those kind of the effort in each country or in each organization is very important. That is the point. So also the a question of yours, I really would like to respond to that. So in my experience as a person in the private sector, I have come to feel that business continuity has a ripple effect to the sustainability of the society. For society. So for society, sustainability is their great importance, and so for the companies, the most important things is business continuity. So these are actually two sides of the same coin. So companies create the value for society, and the society evaluates what is provided. And so that society sustainability and the company's business continuity are aligned. So the requirements laid out in the SDGs are crucial for the sustainability for society, and creating values to maintain this sustainability should be the purpose of the company's existence itself. So, and by implementing such value creation, the continuity of the company can be maintained. And incorporating the social issues into a strategy and operations by continuously fostering a deep dialogue with society is extremely important for the continued existence for the company, as Ms. Ray pointed out. So I believe that also that it is quite important. I believe that the companies is the organization have an essential role to play in designing a society with a long-term vision, because the business continuity and human society sustainability is two sides of a coin, therefore.
Thank you, Dr. Endo. Ms. Rai, I wanted to pick up on something that you said. You talked about the 5 whats. One of them was security, and obviously a safe, reliable, resilient digital infrastructure will be the backbone of economies across this region. Yet we understand that there is actually a digital infrastructure financing gap that could reach up to $512 billion by 2040. How can the private sector bridge this gap? How can India in particular establish a stream of investment that will be sustainable over the long term?
Very good question. So yes, when I started with what are and why we have to do certain things differently in each country, investment gaps was one of them that I was almost alluding to. But if we look at the challenges and the problems that India has and trying to solve, I assure you there will be many countries like India who can benefit from this development. So investment attraction is a function of the problem that we are solving, such that it does not just enable India. The goal that the Prime Minister has is, work in India, but work for the world is what we are trying to look at. The 20-cent data enabling, I assure you there are so many countries in Africa, so many other countries in Asia other than China who will benefit from this technology. And our service providers have aspirations to not just meet the needs of India, but travel to the globe. So yes, investment is critical. And we are looking at attracting investment from multiple sources, in attracting resources who will drive this infrastructure build out from several sources. So I said government is one. And yes, the government finds a gap with, so many $1 billion that you called out. However, if you look at some of the startups, their investment is coming from all over the globe. They are becoming unicorns. The latest one that I told you about was M5 Health. So if the problem that we are trying to solve will benefit humanity, we will be attracting investment. And recently, just a couple of days ago, Invest India received a award from UN being the best agency for attracting investment. So investment for dollars, investment for expertise. If I have a problem and if I have data sources, I assure you that the likes of MIT or the likes of universities in Australia, Singapore will be attracted, because the kind of data factory India has to the tune of 1.3 billion people is something that no other country can offer, with the ease of doing business which is continuously improving, as well as the largest democracy, which makes the usage of data easier. Not only are we looking at making usage of data easy with the restriction of data utilization through federated learning platforms, which will enable not just the data transfer, but will enable data movement without actually data being transferred. So technology, problems, value for humanity are the reasons where I am not I'm confident and I'm not worried that this gap will be addressed through startups, through entrepreneurs, through MNCs, through local companies, through government of the world.
There's that value creation theme again. Dr. Endo, I wanted to turn back to you. I know that India and Japan have a very longstanding digital partnership, and this includes recent initiatives such as connecting startup hubs in the two nations to think about and focus on the SDGs. How can India and Japan build on these strong ties to use digital tools for social good?
Thank you. I believe a strong partnership can only be built if both countries share the common values on the individual level. Towards this end, NEC has been developing talents in both India and Japan and exchanging them between the two countries. And in India, we are currently building the next generation of upskilled talent to meet the technological skill gap and making them industry ready for Japanese market. And NEC's global capabilities center in India has over 6,000 technology professionals that are working towards driving business growth through a technology center of excellences from India to Japan and global markets in open source software, biometrics, transportation, logistics, and 5G as well. The NEC established NEC laboratories in India in July 2018, just 2 years before, however, which aims to develop and commercialize the innovation solutions to solve complex social problems in India. And with the NEC Laboratory India, we plan to promote the spread of the solutions from India to other countries while blazing the successful path of reverse innovation to markets throughout the world. That's our intention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Endo. And something that you said earlier about Society 5.0, this super smart data society, actually made me think about something I'd seen about Australia's 5G Innovation Initiative. And so, Minister Fletcher, I wondered if, building on this theme of a super smart digital society, if you could talk a little bit about that innovation initiative, especially given the discussion of the Internet of Things, of 5G, and how you're really leveraging 5G to build this ecosystem.
We are enthusiastic about 5G as a technology to enable smart manufacturing and the Internet of Things because of features like very high device density per base station, very low latency, and higher speeds, considerably higher speeds than 4G. It will support applications like very large numbers of sensors in agriculture, soil moisture monitors, for example, feeding back data, or in applications such as automated vehicles. Again, with that very low latency, it can allow signals to be sent from a vehicle into the network, processing to be applied to it and back to the vehicle in a very short space of time. So we're interested in applications like remote mining. Australia is a world leader in remote controlled mines, but this technology will allow further advances. So we have committed funding for essentially under a competitive grant process where we'll be asking businesses to come forward and seek support to develop particular applications, working with the telcos as to how they would use 5G in industrial settings, in mines, in smart manufacturing, in agriculture, and in other sectors. I should also add that we've got a strong interest in working with India on these issues. Our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There was a comprehensive strategic partnership announced on the 4th of June this year. And we've agreed to work together in areas like the digital economy, cyber security, and critical and emerging technologies under the Framework Agreement on Cyber and Cyber-Enabled Critical Technology Cooperation. And we are very enthusiastic about working with India in areas like cooperation between our two countries' research institutions and industries, and particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and big data.
Thank you. And Ms. Rai, turning back to you in terms of thinking about the issue of the enabling environment, I think it was Minister Fletcher earlier who talked a little bit about challenges for the telecommunication industry, return on investment. We talked a little bit in the last question about investment. Thinking about obstacles that hamper companies' ability to deliver successful services, I was wondering if you could comment on how business and government can work together for smooth rollout of network technologies.
Okay, great. Laura, if I could take the liberty to add to something that Dr. Ido-san said on partnership between Japan and India, and that Dr. Honorable Minister Fletcher said about Australia, India, I have a few things that I can highlight, and that will somewhat answer the question you have, but I will add to make sure that I address the question you have. So, we have been talking about AI infrastructure in so many different areas, whether it is smart city, whether it is health, whether it is, creating platforms for small and medium and micro industries, you name it. AI is going to touch the lives like no other technology has. Now, when we think of AI and India, what comes to your mind is India is very software rich. And I'm happy to share that, a Gartner analysis called out that if you look at the world AI resources, there are about 16.5% that are based out of US. There are about 9% AI resources that are in China and 8% in India. That is just growing by leaps and bounds. Just to tell you, in the last month itself, Intel was able to train 100,000 people in 1 week on AI, and 15,000 of them certified by Guinness. So, it's a quality education. So India offers AI resources. So 3 countries in terms of AI resources that, Gartner called out: India, China, US. Now, 3 countries that Gartner called out in terms of patents filed on AI. The number 1 country was, China. 38% of patents filed over the last 15 years coming from China, 25% from US, 15% from Japan. I clearly see a partnership of resource and IP that Japan and India can work together. Similarly, when I look at Australia, I see a lot of partnership with the data repository that India is, the democracy that India is, and the friendly relationship the two, Australian continent and India as a country share. I think there's a lot we could do in AI. Now, coming to the question that you said, what are some of the roadblocks? The roadblocks have been ease of doing business. The roadblocks have been, delays in filing your inventions, innovations, and the roadblocks have been, in registering a company. So, like so many other regulatory requirements that we have, but we have been quite vocal and loud. Consortiums, industry consortiums like Carnegie have, proved great, voicing platforms where we have been able to voice to the government. And as a result, ease of doing business in the last 5 years has moved from 133 to now 63, which makes India better than Vietnam. So yes, they have lots of challenges, but many of them being addressed, and many of them will be addressed. And I'm looking for partnership with countries, with companies and government and industry forums like this, and address those policy regulatory requirements and the delays in responding to IP filings. I think those are the ones that I would call as roadblocks.
I want to build on this issue that you raised around cooperation, and the last couple of questions around sort of regional cooperation. Dr. Endo, if I may come to you, I know that NEC has been at the forefront of developing digital infrastructure in India. How are you planning to contribute more to the social infrastructure? Can you talk a little bit about the cooperation between the countries from your perspective?
Thank you. I really understand that India has quite a lot of the digital projects planned and also are running. So I believe the especially smart cities area, India has a 100 smart city program. Am I right? So I really, we really would like to, contribute to those areas. And we are now in step with India growth story to build a robust infrastructure. As current use cases through our bus rapid transportation project, it is one of the smart city project with a multiple city like Ahmedabad. And we are managing the over 5,000 buses across India by providing end-to-end digital transformation solutions, including a remote command control sensor and touchless and cashless payment systems. Through intelligent traffic management solutions, we have helped reduce traffic jams and improve the city's operational and financial efficiencies. The logistics NEC, in logistics, NEC has a 50-50 joint venture with India government to provide container tracking for export and import from the in the marine port. And this is nearly a revolution for India logistics industry, as this will not only streamline the operation in the fragmented logistics sector, but also ensure visibility and transparency through 99.99% accurate real-time data analysis. So we are present at 17 ports in maritime ports in India and tracking 100% of the country's containers volumes. Also, as a recent case, we concluded the Chennai Andaman optical fiber cable project. We are very happy to participate in those projects, and which involved the laying of the 2,030 114-kilometer long undersea cables inaugurated by Indian Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Modi. himself, this project is going to significantly enhance the connectivity in the islands. NEC will continue providing our cutting-edge ICT technologies and collaborating with India's various stakeholders. We are contributing for massive efficiency and enhancement of the Indian society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Endo. And pulling out a little bit to talk about multilateral cooperation, Minister Fletcher, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the Quadrilateral Coalition, which is India, the United States, Japan, and Australia, share common values regarding the importance of digital connectivity and also secure networks, which has been talked about by all of you. What are ways in which those four countries might work better together on issues such as trusted vendors, 5G? Curious for your thoughts on this.
Well, these are all very important issues, and clearly India, Japan, the US, Australia share democratic values, and clearly communications networks are extraordinarily important in the way that people interact within countries and across countries. And so certainly Australia has close arrangements with all of those countries, and we're keen to work closely in the development of technology and in sharing experiences. One of the areas that we're interested in is sharing in research, and indeed under the framework arrangement on cyber and cyber-enabled critical technology cooperation that I mentioned earlier, we've laid out some joint priorities between Australia and India. One of the things we're very interested in, of course, is because India is so large in terms of people, but also has the challenge of many people living on very low incomes, then some of the factors that Ms. Rai was talking about earlier in terms of the drive to deliver data at very low prices by world standards, the Indian market is undoubtedly going to influence developments globally because it's such a big market. And if you find cheaper ways to do things, cheaper ways to apply technology, that'll be taken up very, very widely. So we were interested to learn from that. But what we're also very conscious of is that at the same time as making the delivery of technology cheaper, we also need to make sure that we maintain security. And that is clearly a priority for governments of liberal democracies as we seek to maintain and protect the values on which our societies are based.
Thank you so much. And last question to you, Ms. Rai, again, in terms of this idea of cooperation and engagement. In addition to private investment, countries often rely on foreign investment to build digital infrastructure, and the extent of foreign investment, obviously is determined not only by regulatory in the telecom industry, but specific economic settings, taxation, monetary and fiscal policy. What incentives and measures can India introduce to attract more foreign investment for the successful deployment of digital infrastructure? Sure.
So, the situation that we are in with the geopolitical issue, I don't want to name any country, but, there are several tensions and, so many issues that are happening around the world. So what India is trying to do in the presence of this pandemic, in the presence of the geopolitical issues, is to become a very attractive country for investment. So if you look at manufacturing, India has attracted, many companies to build smartphones, and not just smartphones for the consumption of the Indian people, but consumption for the world. Similarly, if you look at the automakers, India is producing cars that are not just for consumption of India, but consumption of not just the countries with lower GDP, but countries like Europe also. The small cars that India is manufacturing goes to all kinds of the country. What India is now looking at, how do I, for example, attract semiconductor industry? I know a lot about Intel, so I can tell you that they are looking at all kinds of incentives to bring and attract assembly test manufacturing, to bring, manufacturing of systems, silicons, platforms, products, for foreign companies, foreign investors to come and invest in India. I have one more thing to talk about. Is when you look at technologies like this, there has got to be global partnership and collaboration. When we talk about these infrastructures, I heard Honorable Minister Fletcher talk about it, and I also called out AI, cloud, energy, as well as connectivity. These are all critical technologies which will be providing the infrastructure for any development to happen for anyone. The growth that the world will see is going to come based on these infrastructure. But with these infrastructure comes challenges. And the way I like to put it, any technology, and you can put it under security, you can put it under inclusivity or whatever have you. But there are four basic things. One is bugs, and this will include security issues. Then is bias. There is an AI, a model trained, and it only thinks architects can only be men because this company or the data they study. So there is bugs, security. There is bias. There is malware, intentional bugs, and then there is manipulation. When we are talking like technologies like this, these four factors need to be protected against, for our software based or for our systems. And I personally feel that, like we have the World Health Organization, we have to have partnership with willing countries to look at what are the policy regulatory requirements that we have to work collaboratively such that, we can safeguard interest of our people. Just like with normal intelligence, you have judiciary, you have police. Similarly, with artificial or augmented intelligence, you have to have the framework which will protect us against the bug, bias, malware, and the intentionally manipulated data. So I really feel the countries that are here, Japan, Australia, India, US, I believe that we have to come together and partner to create these infrastructure framework to be robust enough to safeguard interest of every single human being.
Good note to end on: cooperation, global engagement, and partnership. Ms. Rai, Minister Fletcher, Dr. Endo, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.